Well, thank you and welcome once again to Where Are They Now? And as we've been promoting, joining us now is he's still the student assistant at Oklahoma State University in Cowboy baseball. It'd be Robin Ventura. And we wanted to get his expertise. I hate to flower him with that big word, but yeah, we all know about Rob. 3-time All-American, had the national record hitting streak of 58 games. All the things that we know about him, 16-year MLB veteran, managed the White Sox for 5 seasons. Have I forgotten anything we want to add to that? Or?
No, expertise might be a little bit much, but other than that, I think you're okay.
That was one of those examples when I wanted to take the word back, as soon as it came out of my mouth. But
I know you did.
But I didn't.
I know you did.
But I couldn't capture it or quickly enough. So I had.
Thought you were talking to somebody else. That's why you wanted to take it back.
The student part of it got to me. That's what it was right there.
You're trying to be nice.
Yeah, and that's rare between our conversations.
Very rare.
But I want to ask, obviously, you watched the World Series. You've been part of World Series. I mean, you've been part of this thing in the dugout. Let's get to the most obvious question: is when you were managing with the White Sox, were you an analytics guy?
Snell out?
Yeah, would you have taken Snell out? That's I guess that would be the answer to your question. Yeah.
I don't know. I just look at this is the way they do it in Tampa, and it's their formula, and they've gone a long way doing it. So, he also has guys that throw 98 miles an hour coming out of the bullpen. So
Correct.
He feels confident that that's the way he's been doing it. But you do cringe when you're watching a guy like Snell pitch the way he's pitching. And I know that the lineup for the Dodgers was very thankful that they took him out. Whether it was the right decision, you'll always, you're going to find out by the result of it. And everybody's going to have an opinion. But they stuck to what their formula was, and that's whether people like it or not. That's just the way they do it, and I'm telling you, they're going to do it again the next time it comes up. But you look at that formula for 162 games, and you can kind of lose a couple of them and win a lot of them if you do it. But this is just one game and one moment, and it's just hard to. I don't know. I just look at it's hard to take a guy out that is in the zone and in the moment pitching very well, because it's really you're rolling the dice every time you bring a guy in out of the bullpen. You don't know what's going to happen.
You've been in that position enough in the dugout where you have to go with your gut, don't you? You have to go with the eye test.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, you do, and you can make. Believe me, I made mistakes, and I pulled a guy, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. I've left the guy in, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's no guarantee either way. It's just what you're talking about is that eye test of how that guy was pitching, what the swings look like on the other side. I think that's where you sit there and you look at it like, boy, that's a tough one to pull them out. It really is.
Would you rather, as a manager, and I'm sure you've had both, it seems like in this day and age, you'd like to go to the mound and have a guy look at you crossways where darn well he's not agreeing with your move. He didn't want to come out, versus a guy that he passes you halfway there before you ever get to the mound, right?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious Snell was not happy that he's coming out. And that's part of. But I think. After the game, I think, when the emotions aren't quite as high, Snell can look at it like that's just the way we've been doing it all year and the whole time he's been there. So it's not I don't think it's a surprise to him, but, I think he just wishes that he would have a little more rope to keep pitching.
I think it was Buck who said it, and I think Smoltz seconded his opinion. But do you agree with the comment that it seems like in this day and age now we're trying to find ways to get guys out of the game in terms of a pitching instead of leaving them in there?
Well, I think it's more of a way to kind of cover your rear end for leaving them in there. I think, all these numbers, there's numbers for everything. There's a lot of different numbers, and it depends on which ones you really want to look at that is for your argument. But I think you look at the splits that Betts had; they weren't good against left-handers. this year. I mean, do you count them this year or do you count a whole year? So it's, there's other numbers that if you if you see a reliever in your series 3 times, those numbers are pretty high too.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's numbers go up. So it depends on which ones you're looking at and which ones you believe in. And again, you have your eyes of watching the game and the feel of the game. So, they can look at those numbers any way they want to look at them. But in the end, they didn't work. And that's what people are going to be reacting to.
And to be fair, again, they worked a lot this year and under Cash. So what's Cash like? You know him fairly well?
He's a good guy. He's a good baseball guy, and he's a good manager. He's smart, and I think, Tampa has kind of come up with this formula a little bit because they've had to compete in the East, and, you got Boston and New York and, teams that have some money, and they're finding ways to be able to compete with that. And that's one of the ways that they've done that. They've also come out with the opener, the guy that comes out and throws maybe an inning or two, and then they bring another guy in.
Mm-hmm.
So they do it a little unconventional, but that's the way they've planned to go, and they're going to continue to do that. I don't think this is going to stop them from continuing to do what their formula is.
And they're not the only team, but they're also go to the 4-man outfield. Did you ever do that?
I've done 4-man infield.
Yeah, but that's never a good situation. I can't imagine.
No, that's a last resort. But I can see a guy going to a 4-man outfield. I mean, there's guys that just don't hit the ball on the ground, probably the opposite way, and you don't really need a guy over there. And really, the way today's game is, a lot of them don't play pepper or never grew up playing pepper or anything like that, so they can't just change their swing and hit a ball over there. They're just not capable of doing it.
I remember when you were playing for sure, and obviously have an affinity with the Dodgers because you were a Dodger, and played with the Roberts, as you were telling me as well.
Yeah.
But you pulled a lot, but you weren't against going the other way either.
No, I think back then you were more of, being able to kind of spray the ball around the field and keep people straight up and kind of and make them play a little more honest of where they're supposed to play. But today's game's a little different. I don't think they necessarily do the get them over. A guy on second base, no outs. You're making sure as a left-handed hitter you're pulling the ball, and that's not really part of the game anymore either. I think they're still looking to drive the ball out of the ballpark, and if they pop it up, they pop it up.
Baseball is such a great sport in that we're all experts afterwards, and goodness knows, as a manager of a team, you found out how many experts there really were in Chicago, after every game probably. But we always have the benefit of hindsight, right? And it didn't work, so it must have been a bad decision. But, I will give him credit. I will give Tampa Bay credit that they stick to their convictions, if you will. And if this is the way we're going to do it, we're going to do it. What did he tell his players? His pitchers, you better have a thick skin, right?
Yeah, you better have a thick skin and a short memory, I think. And that's kind of part of it. I think you really look at his bullpen, and he's relied on his bullpen a lot. And, never in the history of the game has there been more guys that come out of the bullpen throwing 95 and above. He's got a whole slew of guys out there that all throw above 95. So I think he felt confident that he could still get through it with guys that have velocity and stuff. It just didn't work. And I think, you look at it over time, he still feels confident about bringing guys in that, have velocity. He's not bringing a guy in that's a knuckleballer. Mm-hmm. He's bringing guys in that have some stuff.
Just as an aside, and we're all over the place here, you think hitters now, 2 or 3, 4 years later, can handle that 95 and above stuff better than they used to when it first came on board?
Probably just because they're used to it. I think, in the past, when you had a hitters meeting, it was like you noticed the guy that threw 95. It was like a big deal. Hey, they got this guy that, there was guys that did throw, 98, but there weren't as many of them, and now they're used to having to go in there and face that on a nightly basis. So I'm not saying guys couldn't do that, but guys today are used to going to the ballpark knowing that I'm going to have to catch up to 98.
Who is the guy that you probably did not want to go out there too many times to the mound and say you're done? And again, you'd rather have a guy like that than somebody who just is looking over there saying, "Hey, come on and get me, I'm done." But who was the toughest guy you had to face? You're the skipper, so you're the guy making the decision. But who's the guy that you knew didn't want you out there?
There's plenty of them. None of them really want to come out. I mean, when they get to that point, we didn't have too many that wanted to come out. But, I would say Chris Sale's one that wants to stay in the game, and he feels like he could go further no matter what, unless it was just getting it handed to him. He wanted to stay out there. He wanted to eat up innings, and I think, those starters kind of pride themselves, at least, the older feeling or acting ones, they wanted to go as deep into the game as they could and kind of give the bullpen a rest. And, I think it changes when you're in the playoffs because everything's so magnified. But in a regular season game, those guys know that over the course of the season, you need to give your bullpen a break. And those number 1, 2 starters felt like they needed to go deep into a game to kind of give those guys a break.
What was your feel for this rather unique format, playing games in neutral sites, playing them back to back to back all the way, until you get to the World Series, no days off, designated hitter. All the changes that took place this year in a different year for sure.
Well, I think, obviously the circumstances dictated that as far as just kind of being in a bubble and not having your normal season of, guys coming up and down. They had to keep those guys quarantined. And, when a guy got hurt or he tested positive for COVID, you're bringing a guy up that hasn't seen live action, really. Mm-hmm. So, normally you bring a guy from the minor leagues, and he's been playing. And, his timing should be at least on par to, putting him in a game and you know what you're going to get. And I think that's an interesting part of what was going on this year. I think the extra inning thing, I wasn't a big fan of that. It's I think like what they did in football, you could lose a game basically on a coin toss in overtime, and the team goes down and kicks a field goal, you lose. So at least they kind of changed that somewhat, that if they kick the field goal, you can still go down and tie it up or win. But there were some things that I think that they had the ability to kind of change a couple things and do it. And, I think for the most part, I think they did a good job of trying to make it interesting and change a few things and, speed up the game somewhat.
What remains part of next year, assuming we return to a normal year? What do you think comes out of this year that'll be part and parcel of the fabric next season?
The DH one will be interesting of how they do that. If they really want to stay with a full-time DH in both leagues, it's always been kind of fun that there's 2 ways to play the game. And the National League one where the pitcher hits, it's not like you want to see the pitcher hit, but there's a lot more decision making going on. There's more strategy that goes in, double switches. And, when you're leaving a guy in, why you're leaving him in. And in the National League, when the pitcher's hitting, I think your bench is a little more in tune of what's going on in the game than when you have a DH, because normally, you have your best lineup out there, and unless you have a bunch of platoon guys, you can pretty much have your tennis shoes on and watch a game. Somebody's going to have to get hurt for some people to go in the game.
You're a California guy and a Dodger fan growing up. You felt, I guess, to some extent, some limit, the frustration over the years. Was it 32 years ago that they did win a World Series? But they've been close so many times. It got to be a relief for fans in the Big Blue, right?
And I think it is. It's a team that has a great history, and being out there, I think you're competing with the Lakers, and they won this year, and it's just you just like to see. I mean, for me, I like to see my hometown team win. So I think I can look back at it somewhat as a fan. I mean, I'm not as much as a fanatic as I was when I was young, but it's just good to see. Dave Roberts is a good friend of mine, and I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the people that I know that are with the Dodgers that they won, and they can kind of get that monkey off their back.
Had Gasparino on at 4 o'clock because Billy part and parcel of that operation with the amateur scouting, and we got into the subject of the rounds next year as far as the draft is concerned. He thinks there's 20 rounds perhaps going to come up. Going to have it in July. So let's get back to the college ranks now. Oklahoma State, just as any other school, got a lot of people back from a year ago that wanted to come back. So college baseball might be as good as it's ever been, really. And that's not saying it was really good when you guys played. So I'm going to be the old man on the park bench here. But at the same time, I got to think Major League Baseball can't go like they did it this year and not infuse more talent. Everybody takes a hit there, right?
I think so. I mean, it's a little tougher, I think, for us to kind of go forward unless you really know how many rounds there's going to be, and as far as going forward of recruiting and things like that, of what you actually have to play with. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what made this year a little confusing for everybody is, you had a lot of guys that probably wouldn't have been back that are now back. I mean, we had seniors that actually get to come back. Mm-hmm. So normally you wouldn't have that. So your roster's expanded. I think everybody has that. But going forward, you're trying to juggle, I think, with scholarships and everything else of what you can actually bring in. And until you get a definite answer of what the draft's going to look like, you don't really know. And I think that's the part where everybody's kind of dangling out there. You don't really know how you're going to be able to recruit and how much you have to offer guys and who you can bring in and how much you can get them. Things like that. Yeah,
and it's not like this is a full ride thing where you can get one for one. I mean, you got to break down your scholarship, so it maybe complicates the matters even more.
Right, and I think there's a lot of talent out there, and to be able to kind of bring in the right pieces and stuff you already have, and moving forward, you're always wanting the best players you can get, but you're not always going to be able to get them because you can't offer them what maybe another school has a need that is more important, and they're going to offer them a little bit more. So,
well, take us inside.
It's a little tough.
Take us inside O'Brate now for a few minutes here. You guys have been working out, fall workouts, scrimmaging yourself. Basically, I mean, I'm looking at the box score. Maybe aside from Polkovich, everybody who was in that 18th game last year, for the most part, is back. From now, I don't know if that automatically means they'll start, but you got a good base to work from. How have the workouts gone so far?
They've gone fine. I mean, you're trying to find ways to keep them, motivated and hungry to go out there and play. And when you're always playing against yourself, it's, it can get a little tiring of seeing the same guys all the time. So they're going to be very excited if they get a chance to play against somebody else. But they've done a really good job of, we mix it up and, you draft teams and you try and make it fun and create different situations and things like that. So the kids have been great. I mean, they're coming every day. They're working hard. That's the kind of stuff that you enjoy seeing is these kids are motivated and they come out and play hard every day. So that stuff has been, really good to see.
On average, how many times do you guys at this time of year work out? I mean, 3 times, 4 times? You're on the 20-hour rule, right?
Probably 4 times a week. I think, just in the hours that you get to have them. Now everything's kind of limited by, hours in the week that you get to have them, and they need to have a day off and get their stuff done. But, we have them pretty much 4 days a week, at least, to be able to bring them in. And, even on days like today, you still, now with the new stadium, you got a nicer cage, and we can still get work done, which is fantastic.
Tell me about the reaction so far. It probably is not going to be complete till you get another team in there or opponent to play that first game. But have the kids kind of calmed down a little bit about being in the new stadium because you're working out all the time, and some of the niceties are, you don't take them for granted, but are they used to them a little bit more now than they were from the first day they walked in?
Oh, definitely. I think it works in our favor somewhat that we're able to get in there and do it. I think last year we had to switch over, which would have been kind of playing in a foreign place for a while because you're trying to get used to your normal routine of where you come in and get your stuff and go in the cage and, just different things on the field of, the way the ball bounces, it comes off the fence, how you see, the way the ball flies, the wind, how that's affected. So we're better off now than we were last year if we would have gone in there. But it's a beautiful place. I think that part is exciting. The kids are excited to come every day, and the stadium's just fantastic.
What's been the most common reaction you've heard from not only maybe your position players, but anybody around the team that, they're past the wide-eyed look, I imagine, like, wow. Now they're into the, hey, the hops are pretty true, the bounces are pretty true, the scratch, all that stuff. I mean, what do you hear, generally speaking, from the guys?
Well, I think, for the older guys that have spent all their time at LAT and now you're over here, it's just, you don't want them to lose the grit that the other place had. Because when you have a place like that, that's been around as long as it has, and it was a great field. I mean, I think Todd did a great job of that field was great. He worked very hard to make it first class, and he's doing the same thing over at this one. So, the kids, I think they look at the stadium and you see the seating and the suites that are up top, and I think they visualize a little bit more of if we can get people in there and fill that up, which you hope to do. It's a definite advantage that we probably didn't have at the old one.
Do you feel as if I don't know what word I'm seeking here, but you and Matt are there, and these kids understand the backgrounds that you and Matt bring to the field. The guys that have worked with you for a year, I would imagine, are pretty used to you. Just Robin and Matt, right? And you're working around there. Do you feel the same thing about some of the new guys that the awe factor maybe is not that's probably a little bit too much to ask?
Yeah,
there,
I don't know. I don't think there's really an awe factor anymore because I think we've done enough stuff already. I think when they first got here, we were working out. Everything becomes about a relationship and how you communicate, how they communicate to you. So, that stuff's all kind of out of the way. And so now it's just, you're having open dialogue and, whether you're telling them good things or whether you tell them like, hey, you might need to change this, or giving them ideas on something that they need to do to make them better. Now we're past that point where they're just quite, I don't know if it's quite, but, thinking like, I'm getting this advice, I got to do it. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And, you have to come up with something else for them. If they're not getting something, or, you continually give them things to work on and improve on. And I think now we're at a point where they at least trust what you're saying and understand that we've kind of been in some spots that they want to get to. So I think that becomes, maybe more of the credible stuff of, we have a lot of, on our coaching staff, everybody has been in places and done things in the game, whether it's college or professional, that has been at the highest level. So, whether it's Rob, Marty, Matt, me, Roland, anybody, we've all been, fairly high up, and I think that's comforting when they're getting information that we're giving them good stuff.
I remember one of the first conversations I had with Matt about, I think you got on board. We were talking about the everybody working together, not only the team, but the coaches had to kind of find their own niche, if you will, and keeping in mind Josh is still calling the shots, and everybody has their own role. Has that evened out, or I don't mean that was ever a problem, but has everybody kind of assumed what they're doing right now and feel comfortable with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a student coach.
Yeah.
So I'm more of a, I kind of just roam around and do things that I know well. I mean, I'm not going to go. I mean, I talk pitching with Rob, but I'm not ever going to be giving them information on different things, because that's not really my spot or anything like that. But we all mix and match on things that I think we're strongest at. And Matt and I have the same philosophy about hitting, so it's not an issue of the information or the technique. It might be delivery, or some kid hears it different from me than he does from Matt, or they like what Matt's saying instead of what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. That stuff we kind of figure out, but we still think the same way about where they need to get. And I think that's the important part, is we're all working together, and I think it's been a blast for me. I know I've had a lot of fun. The kids are great. Coaches are great to work with and do stuff with. So I'm excited about it. But again, everybody still kind of can float and do what they feel they're good at.
And you like that student status, huh? I mean, you've got a new backpack, and everybody, here he is.
Yeah, I got a student card too. I can go over to the student union and get some food, throw my card around. It's good. That's the other coaches don't have that. They're a little jealous.
I got to tell you, I've had a bunch of stories that have been around, but you may be one of them right there.
No, it's really been fun. I mean, I think the kids, they're very funny in their jokes and just teasing, just because I'm a student with them. But that stuff's been fun too. I mean, I've had some of these kids, even the players that are on our team, we've had the same class, so. It's
That's right.
Kind of funny to sit there, and I'll ask them if they got their stuff done, and it's just been really fun.
I would think it would be wise for the ones that are in Ventura's class not to cut the class. I mean, that's just me. I mean, because I would.
No, but even the online stuff, when you have to post things, they like to post little jokes in there, and they get after me pretty good, which is good. But what Matt told them is, be careful when you do that, because he has a lot of free time, and he's willing to go to great lengths to get you back. So
there's always that leverage, right? There's always a
little bit of that. I do have a lot of extra free time that they don't.
Hey, I appreciate you spending time. It's been a while. We haven't talked in a while, but I wanted to get a lot of things out there for our fans. I know they were glad to hear from you, and it won't be long. I don't know the exact first date, but you know what? It's going to be here sooner than later. Hopefully we get that thing opened up and start playing somebody else and not ourselves.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
All right, bud. We'll stay in touch. I appreciate you being on.
Okay, please don't. Please don't.
Don't what?
Don't stay in touch.
I look.
It'll be
you want me to stay in touch. That's the problem. So you want to come across as being somebody who doesn't want, but I know.
I don't want people to think that we're actually friends.
Well, okay.
We can.
Okay, if you want to keep it that way. We know different, though. We know different.
I know. I'm just kidding.
All right, big man.
It's good to talk to you, Tom.
Hey, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, bye.